Hey, what's up YouTube? Don the Smartphone Guy coming back at you with another video, and today is Happy iPhone 10 Day because today is launch day for the iPhone 10. So rather than doing the same thing that everyone else is doing with unboxing and first impressions, I wanted to share something just slightly different about my experience with these two devices. So this is the iPhone 8 Plus, this is the iPhone 10, and I want to share with you some of the differences and maybe help you out if you're somebody who's maybe considering upgrading and maybe you're coming from a 6 Plus or a 7 Plus. I want to just kind of give you maybe some guidance on which one you might want to pick up. So obviously, the choice is totally up to you. This is just my personal opinion after using this phone for about a month and this phone for about 8 hours. So my judgment on this one is going to be a little bit tainted because the time that I've had with it is obviously very short. Whereas I've been using this one as my daily driver for basically about a month now. So first area that I want to talk about major differences is the price. Obviously, you're going to save a lot of money if you buy the iPhone 8 Plus. I think it's about a $200 difference between the two. So I have the 256 gig version of the iPhone 8 Plus that I spent just over $1,000 with tax for. By the way, that one's completely unlocked for any carrier, whereas this one I got with T-Mobile, but it really doesn't matter what carrier you get it with because it's going to be $1,000 for the version I got, which is the 64 gig version. So with tax, I ended up paying about $1,060. So this one was cheaper for the higher capacity than this one with the lower capacity. So obviously, price-wise, there's a pretty significant difference there. So next thing I want to talk about, obviously, is the build. They look very similar. Obviously, I have space gray for both of them. One major difference is over here, you have a stainless steel ring around the outside. So all that bezel there is stainless steel. Whereas over here, you have a matte finish that's aluminum. I actually prefer the aluminum, just kind of a personal preference. I actually like the matte look on this one a little bit better. This one's a little bit more flashy, which, obviously with this phone, you're trying to be a little bit more flashy, right? So anyways, I just kind of prefer the matte. That's just a personal preference. This one is going to get up scratches a little bit easier because of the stainless steel versus the aluminum. So, that's just something that you may have to deal with if you do pick up the iPhone 10. But obviously, a major difference is the form factor. So I have here, this is my wife's iPhone 7. So if just in comparison between the two, in terms of the actual size of the iPhone 10, just slightly bigger. I mean, it's really not a major. I mean, here's the Google Pixel 2 XL. You can see the difference here. This is a 6-inch display versus a 5.8-inch display. Now, when you actually put the two displays next to each other, they don't even look close. But this one's a 5.8-inch display. Over here, I think, what is this, a 4.7-inch display? Now, when you put these two next to each other in terms of the display, this one looks really, really small. But, ironically, this one has a 5.5-inch display versus the 5.8-inch display on the iPhone 10. And yeah, actually, this one looks a little bit smaller. And it does. It actually is smaller, technically. In terms of the actual area, it is smaller. So shout out to Lisa from Mobile Tech Reviews. Before this phone even came out, she kind of did a video talking about how this is technically a smaller display than this one over here, even though on paper this one's a 5.8-inch display. It's because it's measuring diagonal. So I'm a math teacher. I'm not going to go into the math of it, but technically this is the smaller display, and you can put that on blast right here. So I actually put this on Twitter a little bit earlier. So this is a picture of watching a YouTube video on the iPhone 8 Plus versus the iPhone 10. So iPhone 8 Plus down here, iPhone 10. You can see that watching videos on the iPhone 8 Plus is obviously much larger. You're getting a much bigger display there, obviously, because it's going to cut off because of the 16:9 ratio that all video is shot in, or 99% of video is shot in. You're going to get some bezels on the side here. You're going to get black bars on the side. And so it cuts it off, whereas this phone's already in that 16:9 aspect ratio, so you don't get that cutoff. So that's going to be something, if you're dealing with video, that's going to be something that you're going to deal with. Now, let's go into, wrong one, go into Twitter here. So the area where you see the difference in the displays is with the iPhone 10 here. Okay, let's get back up to the top here. Now this one's going to load a little slower because of the fact that it's running off my Wi-Fi versus on LTE. But one major difference you'll see is you'll actually get a little bit more information on the iPhone 10 when it comes to something that's vertically aligned. So like Twitter feed, your Facebook feed, you will get just a little bit more, even like news articles. You'll see a little bit more on the iPhone 10. So that's where that longer display will come into play. Now, another thing that you'll notice is in terms of the display, how much brighter this one is. So the iPhone 10 is definitely a much brighter display. We have a Super AMOLED display, or an AMOLED display, I should say. And this one's shooting, or sorry, not shooting, but it's actually the display is Super Retina versus just 1080p Retina display. Now, is it really noticeable? I wouldn't say that it's super noticeable between the difference between the two, except that this one is definitely the brighter of the two displays. In terms of the actual like pixel count, I don't notice a huge difference, and you're not going to notice a major difference in video or anything like that between the two. Now, the next major difference would be on the cameras, and that's really only considering the rear cameras here. So obviously you can see here it's a vertically aligned, the dual cameras, whereas over here you have the dual cameras that are horizontally aligned. So the only difference here, they're actually the same cameras, except for the fact that with this one you have optic image stabilization in both cameras. So even the telephoto lens for the zooming has optic image stabilization here, whereas over here you don't have it. Now, when you're actually shooting video, or if you're actually shooting, photos or whatever, taking pictures, you won't see a major difference between the two. Just in the pictures I've had, or I've taken so far, you don't notice that difference. Where you do notice maybe a difference is with the portrait mode, because this does have a portrait mode for the front-facing camera. So I'm going to go ahead and unlock it with Facial ID. So let's go in here and go into the front-facing camera now. So let's go ahead and turn that around. I'm upside down right now. Okay. So if I go here now, I have portrait mode available on the front-facing camera, whereas with the iPhone 8 Plus, when I'm shooting those selfies, come back in here, turn that camera around, portrait. Notice that when I turn the camera around, it wouldn't let me shoot in portrait mode. So let's go ahead and turn it around. Now try to go to portrait. Oh, it turns the camera around. All right, so obviously the iPhone 8 Plus will not shoot portrait mode selfies. So that's maybe just a slight difference. Now, is that a big deal? Probably not. I don't think that most people really are probably shooting a lot of portrait mode selfies. But if that's for you, if you really want to up your selfie game, then you better get the iPhone 10. So anyways, just a quick look at the differences between these two devices. Now, if you're somebody coming from the larger iPhone and you're thinking about upgrading, I would probably say, for me personally, just stick with the iPhone 8 Plus. I know that, today's the big iPhone 10 day, so maybe I'm stepping on some toes for all the people that bought this phone. But personally, I just feel like this is probably still going to be the better buy, even with those big bezels. I just think you're going to be happier with this phone. Whereas with this one, I think if you're coming from an iPhone 6 or an iPhone 7, then yeah, definitely upgrade to this one. If you're used to that smaller phone, if you're used to a smaller phone like this one and you're looking for an upgrade and you want that larger display, then yeah, the iPhone 10 is the way to go. But if you're coming from the larger display, I say stick with the iPhone 8 Plus. That's just personal preference, just kind of what I think. But anyways, thanks for watching. I hope this review has been helpful for you, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace.